Welcome to the channel, everyone, and this is Let's Play MTG. Welcome to the channel, everyone. Glad to see you stopping by and checking out this video. So this video is the first on the channel for the Magic the Gathering Arena, and today I kind of wanted to do a nice little deck that is Dwarves and Vehicle deck. Vehicles are unique different artifacts that when you tap a creature of a certain type of power, it can then become a artifact creature and a variety of different interactions with that. So I definitely wanted to go ahead and do a deck review first, and then I'm going to go ahead and go on into the gameplay of this deck. That way you have an opportunity to see how this deck works. So the first thing I want to show you are the dwarves of the deck. It's a creature type. So first off, we have 2 copies of Gear Shift Ace. It costs 1 and a white for a 2/1 for a dwarf pilot. It has first strike, and whenever Gear Shift Ace crews a vehicle, that vehicle gains first strike till end of turn. So crewing a vehicle means that you tap a creature for a certain amount of power depending on whatever the crew number is, and then the vehicle becomes an artifact creature. Next, for the dwarfs, we have 4 copies of Shram Senior Artificer. It is for 1 and a white, a 2/2 dwarf advisor that says, whenever you cast an aura, enchantment, or vehicle spell, draw a card. So in this case, we are definitely just going for the vehicles aspect of this, and it does help us be able to draw as well as other benefits that he might be able to give as well. Next dwarf is Magda, Brazen Outlaw. It's a legendary creature, dwarf berserker. It costs 1 and a red for a 2/1. Other dwarves you control get +1/+0, so that can help us increase the power of our dwarves to make crewing certain vehicles a little easier. When a dwarf you control becomes tapped, create a treasure token. Well, they have to tap to crew a vehicle, and then they also can tap to attack. So a variety of different ways to get our dwarfs to tap to create these treasure tokens. And then the last part is sacrifice 5 treasure tokens, and then search your library for an artifact or dragon card and put that card on the battlefield, then shuffle. So this is actually really important when Magda's out. There's only 2 copies in the deck. When Magda's out, crewing vehicles and attacking with the dwarfs gives you a bunch of treasures fairly easily, and then to be able to sacrifice these treasures to go find more vehicles is great. So this definitely helps along with the deck quite a bit. Next up is Veteran Motorist. It's a 3/1 dwarf pilot that costs a red and a white. It says when Veteran Motorist enters the battlefield, scry 2. Whenever Veteran Motorist crews a vehicle, that vehicle gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So a nice little bonus on that. Next up, we have 2 copies of Depala Pilot Exemplar. It's a legendary creature dwarf pilot for a 3/3 that costs 1, a red, and a white. Other dwarfs you control get +1/+1, so that's definitely helping us. Each vehicle you control gets +1/+1 as long as it's a creature. So again, that's definitely helpful on both aspects of both dwarfs and vehicles. And then whenever Depala Pilot Exemplar becomes tapped, you may pay X. And so it doesn't have to attack, it's just whenever it's tapped. If you do, reveal the top X cards of your library, put all dwarf and vehicle cards from among them in your hand, then put the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So if you're really looking for lands, not the best idea to try to tap to pay into this, unless you just have a dead hand, but because you put them you put that stuff in your hand, the rest of anything else goes on the bottom of your library in any order. So it may or may not help you with lands. It's I would say very situational on wanting to pay for that X. And then the last dwarf of the deck is Ethershield Artificer. It's a 3/3 Dwarf Artificer that costs 3 and a white. At the beginning of combat on your turn, target artifact creature you control gets +2/+2 and gains indestructible till end of turn. So now your vehicles can be indestructible, so that's pretty awesome, and definitely can benefit you. So going on into the vehicles of the deck, first off we have Colossal Plow. It's a vehicle that's a 6/3 that costs 2 mana. Whenever Colossal Plow attacks, add 3 white to your mana pool and you gain 3 life. Until end of turn, you don't lose this mana as steps and phases end, and it has a crew of 6. So, a high crew cost, but there's a way to mitigate that that we'll go over in just a second. So to be able to get additional mana when you attack with it, and be able to gain life is really good, to then be able to second main, be able to potentially play a few more spells, and then the gain life aspect can, most of the time, I would say 99% of the time, is a good thing. Very few cases where you can't gain life, or if you gain life you lose life instead. But here on Arena, I don't think we need to really worry about that outside of the potential you can't gain life, but you still get the mana regardless of the life gain. But this card is pretty powerful in this deck. The next vehicle that we want to go over is the Peace Walker Colossus. It is a 6/6 vehicle that costs 3. For 1 and a white, another target creature or target vehicle you control becomes an artifact creature till end of turn, and itself has crew 4. So it can't make itself a vehicle, but another vehicle you have could become an artifact creature without having the crew, just for 1 and a white. So that's great. That can definitely speed up the potential for your vehicles to become artifact creatures. Next up, we have Mizium Tank. It's a artifact vehicle, 3/2 for 1 and 2 red, has trample, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, Mizium Tank becomes an artifact creature and gets +1/+1 till end of turn. So, trample, if I play another vehicle or cast anything that is a non-creature spell, he allows itself to become the artifact creature. And then for crew 1, so any untapped creature you can tap to crew this. Well, at least in this deck. If it's a 0/1, then you can't, but anything with power 1 or greater can crew this thing, so that's good. And to be able to get it out in a multitude of ways is going to be nice. The next vehicle that we have 2 copies of is Untethered Express. It's an artifact vehicle that costs 4 for a 4/4. It has trample, and whenever Untethered Express attacks, put a +1/+1 counter on it, and it only has crew 1. So these trample artifacts that are having crew 1 are great, and one becomes an artifact creature pretty easy. This one, you do need to normally crew it or be able to cheat crewing through other ways, but crew 1 is really not that hard to do, and it gets a +1/+1 counter on it, and it remains vehicle till end of turn, and then it becomes just a regular artifact again, but it will keep that +1/+1 counter, and then be able to next turn come out, attack, and just keep getting bigger and bigger. So I really do like this one, and the artwork I think is pretty neat. And then the last vehicle that we have in the deck is 2 copies of the Sovereign Council flagship. It is a legendary artifact vehicle that costs 5 for a 6/5, has flying, and whenever Sky Sovereign Council flagship enters the battlefield or attacks, it deals 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls, and for crew 3. So even before this thing becomes a creature, it's able to enter the battlefield and deal 3 damage to target creature or planeswalker an opponent controls. And then every time it attacks, it just repeats that effect. So this one can help clear your opponent's board, or if they have like death touch creatures you really don't want to mess with, but have like toughness 3 or less, to be able to start picking off those possible like death touch creatures, or if one of your creatures is not strong enough to be able to take something out, then you might be able to have this be able to attack to weaken one of their creatures enough that when they block something, it's going to kill it. And a lot of times some people are scared about attacking because they know when it's their turn attacking you, you can just crew one of your vehicles up and use it as a blocker. But then the removal from them is a lot different because it's not always a creature. And then going on to the 2 spells of the deck, they are instants. The first one is Juro's Resolve. We have 2 copies of that in the deck. It's an instant that costs a single white. Untap target creature. Prevent all damage that would be dealt to it this turn. So it's not preventing the damage it does, it's preventing the damage dealt to it. So it's kind of like a personal dolmen gate for the creature that you're untapping. And then it also has cycling 2, so I could just pay 2 and then discard it to draw a card. And next we have Armed and Armored. It's an instant, costs 1 and a white. Vehicles you control become artifact creatures till end of turn. Choose a dwarf you control, attach any number of equipment you control to it. So this deck doesn't really work on equipment, but if we did have equipment, that would be an added benefit to this card. It's mainly just having vehicles be able to crew. That way we can not only attack with our dwarfs, but we can also attack with our vehicles. So definitely a essential card for the deck. And then going on to our mana base, it's pretty straightforward and simple with just using basic lands. We have 10 mountains and 14 plains for a total of 24 lands. And because we don't have too much red in the deck, the majority is white or colorless. And that's the reason why the mountains aren't as much, so we draw into the plains a little bit more often. Alright, so this is the review of the deck. Now let's go ahead and see how this deck performs in actual gameplay. Playing Neon Black. This hand doesn't look too bad. I'll go ahead and keep that. Throw the mountain out there. And then, yeah, let's put out Magda. They may even want to try to trade by attacking with Llanowar Elves. Or have Llanowar Elves fight it. No, they're gonna try to just blow it up. Alright. I think now is the time for Colossal Plow. And they may destroy Magna when I attack. Regardless, I still get the treasure token, because when I attack with it, you're not preventing my attack. So at least getting 1 treasure token isn't bad. Alright, good. 2 damage and a treasure token, so I can't complain about that. Next turn, I want to throw the Giant Ox out to then be able to get the Colossal Plow. So, I've recently played with this Hydra stuff that prevents damage and that a few times recently. It can get pretty annoying to be honest. And I think I'll just go ahead and use this so at least I have a blocker. So they are going to go ahead and take the 6. Then I can use the 3 mana for the Peace Walker Colossus. And then the Peace Walker Colossus can pay for Colossal Plow and then tap Giant Ox for Peace Walker Colossus. As long as I get to keep the Giant Ox out there. Nisa shakes the world.
We will not fail.
Probably the mountain. Or is it a forest? Does it have to be forest? Oh, okay, non-creature land.
The land shall conquer you.
My turn. What do we want to do here? So we'll get this crewed, and then we'll crew this with Giant Ox. And I'm not really worried about the lands right now. So I'm just going to attack their base. Next main. And then next turn I could potentially get the Sky Sovereign Council Flagship out. But right now I'm really forcing them to have to block so they don't die. So they're probably going to want to bring another land out.
Be wary of the ground
and use the land as a blocker again, but that is killing their own mana. I mean, it's cool though, if that's what they want to do. So, I'll go ahead and crew out the Peace Walker Colossus with a Giant Ox. Then the Untethered Express gets a +1/+1 counter. And I will ignore their Planeswalker until next turn. And it looks like they concede. So yeah, next turn they would have had a +1, put another land out there. Then they're really restricting their own mana. And then if they would have blocked and survived, then what I would have done is just, instead of attack my opponent, I would attack the Planeswalker. Especially with the Untethered Express getting larger, and been able, with Trample, and be able to deal that damage to Nisa Who Shakes the World, or Nissa, and be able to get rid of it so it doesn't ultimate for the lands to be indestructible. I definitely wouldn't want that, because then they could easily block and prevent a lot of potential damage. So yeah, this deck definitely helps in a variety of different ways to be able to take an opponent out, crew vehicles up, be able to mitigate the type of mana needed to play other things, then crew and things like that. So yeah, that is game 1. Don Al Legendaro. That's a weird name. Not exactly sure how to... A Legendario 00N7. Might be their last name, like first and last name with some numbers and letters and stuff. No idea. Looks like a Colossal Plow Giant Ox situation. So, turn 3, 6 damage, gain 3 life. Could be quite nice. If my opponent wants to go... Any day now would be nice. Alright, so here we go. Let's go ahead and play Mountain. They're probably going to have some kind of tapped land. Blue-red, is it colors, more than likely. Blue and red, there we go. It's not a tap land, but it is a blue or red land. So they are playing the is it colors, thus the is it signet and the is it colored avatar. So let's go ahead and get out the Colossal Plow. Let's go ahead and mute them, because we are not taking our time. We are literally just tap the lands, play the card, so. Alright, next. Land. Let's throw out the Giant Ox. And then let's crew this puppy out. Six damage, gain 3 life. I think what I want to do is the yeah, let me do the Colossus. That's going to be the most helpful thing at the moment. Because at least I'll have a 6/6 to smash, and my opponent concedes. With the deck, and of course this one is ranked just before Platinum. But yeah, my opponent, they will tend to concede because you can get overwhelming pretty quick. So going back to the deck. Typically, being able to throw 2 lands out, get the Colossal Plow, on turn 2, turn 3, get the Giant Ox to then attack with Colossal Plow, potentially play other spells. When you get Magda out there early, sometimes even if you don't, like, they end their turn, and before it's your turn, sometimes you can tap out all of your Dwarfs to crew a vehicle up, to then become your turn to get the advantage of all those treasure tokens. And then Shram sometimes does help with card draw. Being able to scry definitely helps, and be able to have additional counters is quite nice. And then potentially be able to draw also with Tapala. And then to be able to have that potential trample, to be able to continue to get stronger with the +1/+1 counters to get over stuff. Indestructible is definitely helpful. And then of course flying with being able to have some kind of like targeted removal is also really nice. The Armed and Armored can help just fling all of your vehicles at your opponent by turning them into creatures. So yeah, this deck It can run fairly consistent, just depending on the day of uh, when the shuffle algorithm decides to want to work properly. When we look at the stats of the deck, 18 creatures, 6 instants, 12 artifacts, which are all vehicles, 24 lands. When we look at the mana curve, almost everything is 2-costed mana. So our mana curve is pretty good to be able to cast multiple creatures, and with that additional draw, we're able to play more cards. We have ways to get mana outside of just the land, and to be able to play more cards with the card draw, to help mitigate having so much of the aggro type stuff in the deck. So yeah, this is the Dwarf's vehicle deck. I definitely hope that you enjoy this video. Definitely feel free to leave a thumbs up and hit that like button and subscribe to the channel if you like this content, with a little notification bell if you want to be notified anytime more content is uploaded to the channel. And feel free to share with all your friends on all your social media. It would greatly help me. I definitely appreciate it. And as always, have a great day. And definitely be sure to check out this video and others on my channel, and hit that subscribe button right there in the corner if you haven't already.